Hello and good day, everyone. It is my pleasure to have with me on Kimberly T Inspires Miss Carolyn Boras, and she is going to tell us about her phenomenal work in the educational system. She's an international educator, I should say. And I'm not going to wait too much longer. I just love to have my speakers or my co-hosts just go ahead and speak and tell us about themselves. So welcome, everybody. Miss Carolyn Boas.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kimberly. Yes, my name is Carolyn Boras. I am an RTT practitioner and a certified hypnotherapist. RTT stands for Rapid Transformational Therapy. I'm also still a full-time teacher. I've been in education for more than 45 years. I'm 69 years old and still teaching full-time. I am at the end of this school year, I'm going to be transitioning out of the classroom, and then I'm going to be going into the RTT business full time. So that's currently what's on tap. That's currently what's happening.
Nice. Thank you for that. So you said something that brought my attention that you packed up everything and just moved
I
way
did.
across to the
I
other
did.
side of the world. How was that? Was that scary or was that you just had enough? What brought on that? Uh,
Well, how I ended up here was I've been an international educator now for 20 years. But if we go back 20 years, I was looking at my 50th birthday that was coming up, and I'd already been in education for more than 25 years. But where I was living in Canada was very expensive. I couldn't afford to do anything. I couldn't afford to save any money. I was driving a 15-year-old car that had 250,000 kilometers on it, and I didn't know what was going to happen if it broke down because I couldn't afford another car and I couldn't afford to do anything. So I was in my apartment. I was miserable. So there was that was going on. But then on the career side of it, and the teaching side of it, it didn't really matter what school I went into. Whenever I walked into the staff room, the only talk I ever heard was people talking about how many more years, months, weeks, and days they had until retirement. That was the only talk. And as I was looking at turning 50, and I thought, well, if I plan to retire when I'm 65, how on earth am I ever going to stand listening to another 15 years of this misery? I thought I can't do it. I need to change. I need to change. I need to do something else. And as I was contemplating that, I happened upon the world of international teaching. I didn't even know such a thing existed. So when I did my research, I thought, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to make a change. And so I did pack up everything. I left everything that I knew and I moved halfway around the world. And so I spent 12 years in Singapore. I spent 3 years in the Middle East, and now this is my 5th year in Vietnam. And I decided that my decade of my 50s, because I was now doing this thing that was so new, I decided that the decade of my 50s was going to be my decade of adventure. And I had some great adventures, like travel adventures and travel opportunities that were just not open to me back home had I stayed back home. And then as I was looking at turning 60, and I thought, well, 60 is getting to be a big number. What am I going to do in my 60s? So I decided, well, my 60s are going to be my decade of more adventures. And so I've had more adventures. And now that I'm getting ready to turn 70, which is like a really big number, I decided my 70s are going to be my decade of my second brilliant career. So I'm going into RTT full time, and my 80s are going to be my decade of they're going to be my Yoda years, where I hope, this accumulated wisdom that can be used somehow. And my 90s, I haven't thought about that yet. But how how I got into RTT was that about 5 years ago, I experienced a health scare,
Mhm.
and I realized that am one of the I'm one of the people who was lucky enough to be given a second chance. And I didn't know why I was being given this gift of a second chance, because so many people don't have a second chance. And so for a few years, I was trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do with this second chance? I can't fritter it away because it is such a gift. What am I going to do? And it was during that time that I was trying to figure out the answer to this existential question. I happened upon RTT, and I'd always been interested in the workings of the mind and the brain and hypnotherapy. I'd already experienced hypnotherapy before. And so I took the training, loved the training, saw how powerful it was and what it could do to help people. And I thought, well, I have this training now. What do I do with it? And it came to me that what I know about is I know about teachers, I know about education. And I decided this was going to be the way that I give back. This is how I was going to use that second chance, because I started taking a really close look around, and I could see teachers and education are in absolute crisis. And teachers need so much help. I speak teacher lingo. I know what they mean when they are talking about Sunday night scaries. I know
Mhm.
what that is. I know what they mean when they're talking about bullying behavior by parents, by students, by administrators. I know what they mean when they're talking about lack of resources and really the effects that media can have on the profession. I get that because I've experienced all of that.
Absolutely.
So this is what I'm using my second chance for. This is how I can be useful. This is how I can be helpful. Kimberly, I've been reading these various Facebook threads that teachers are in,
It's true.
and honestly, it's I can't believe some of the things that people are writing. Um, several different people wrote in one Facebook thread that they found a tree. They found their tree. I had no idea what they were talking about. I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, some people are talking about finding a tree that they're going to drive into so that they can become incapacitated, not incapacitated too much, but just incapacitated enough that they're off work. And somebody from the UK said, well, here we don't call it finding a tree, we call it finding a wall or finding a bridge. And when I read that, I mean, that was absolutely shocking, but it's heartbreaking,
It
the
is.
things that people are experiencing. It's, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, people are in crisis, teachers are in crisis, they need help,
Yeah.
and I can help. So
Well, I am so glad that you took on this assignment, and I hope that there's so many others that's out there doing it. But it's just, I commend you for doing what you're doing because it's absolutely true. Teachers feel like sometimes good teachers, I want to say, feel like their hands are tied. Now,
yes,
I don't want to say bad. There's some good teachers, there's some bad teachers because I'm pretty sure they all started out with
yes,
good intentions. Okay.
yes,
But when
yes,
your hands are tied in the system, you feel hopeless.
yes, absolutely. People are feeling hopeless. And do you know, um, and the way I look at it is, if I can help one teacher with their healing, imagine what they can then do in their classroom of 30, 35 kids. Because
Absolutely.
if a teacher is
Even
in such
that many kids,
yes,
35 to
yes,
one teacher.
yeah. I know. Well, that's part of the problem. That's for sure. And so, if a teacher is in such under such stress that they're running out of the classroom in tears because they can't handle what's going on. Okay, what kind of learning and teaching is happening in the classroom? Or if a teacher is in such dire straits that they get to the school in the morning, but they can't get out of their car. They can't face going in. How much teaching and learning is happening? And so if I can help one, and then things in the classroom and all those children's lives are being affected, then I can help another teacher and another one. It's like dropping a pebble in a lake and having the ripple effects move out. But Kimberly, it's not enough for me to think that I'm just dropping pebbles. I want to drop a big boulder in the hole and have those ripples go out exponentially, because that is how much help that is needed out there, you know?
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
I read, somebody was telling me a statistic the other day. We looked at how many teachers there are in the world, and it was something like, I don't know, 90 million or something like that. And I said to this person I was talking to, and how many of those people are in need of help? Well, a whole host of them are in need of help. And here's the thing, Kimberly, and this is what I would like to get across to your listeners. A really important point is that help is available. That's
Absolutely.
the thing. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this on your own. Like 30 years or so ago, when I was going through various stressful situations, it was tough because, number one, 30 years ago, how much help was available then? And if there was help available, I didn't know how to find it and how would I access it? And so I was going through these periods, these things that I was experiencing. I had to do it myself, and it was tough. It was really tough. But in this day and age, there's so much help available. People don't need to do it by themselves, and
Absolutely.
and so maybe you can talk to friends, family, co-workers. That might be appropriate. But if it's not appropriate, then there are support groups and there's professional help. And, I can help as well. And one of the things about thinking that your friends, for example, can help, the thing is, your friends can't help. They can listen, but they can't help because they're not trained to help. And after a while, your friends don't want to listen to it anymore because you've told the same thing over and over again. And but they can't help you. And it's not their job to provide that kind of help.
Absolutely.
So, you know, as I say, help is available to people. So
I agree. I agree. Thank you for that. And I have more and more questions. I'm so deep into listening to what you're saying. So, tell me, what was it like to become an international educator, or what does that look like? Are you like
um,
traveling constantly?
well, no, actually, okay. So I'm just thinking back now. This summer is coming up to my 20th anniversary of leaving home for the first time, and when my friends and my family took me to the airport, we were all crying because none of us knew what this meant. And when I first went to Singapore, I didn't even know where Singapore was located. I'd never even heard of Singapore before in my life. And so, but I was so ready to change. It was frightening, but at the same time, it was exciting. And I have to, so I was at one school in Singapore for 12 years, as I said, and then I was at another school in the Middle East for 3 years. And I've been at this one school now for 5 years. And I have to say, becoming an international educator saved my physical, mental, and emotional health.
Oh,
Um, Becoming international, I have not looked back because the whole world of international education is totally different than back home. It totally is. And there are pros and cons to it. Obviously, there really are pros and cons to it. Um, but I've had opportunities that I have travel opportunities and adventure opportunities that I never would have had back home because I couldn't afford to
Yes.
fly halfway around the world. But
Yes.
living in this part of the world, I mean, it cost me, when I was in Singapore, for example, it cost me $200 to fly to Bangkok for the weekend. Well, I can't do that if I'm living in Vancouver. I know. And so having just wonderful adventures like that, it,
Yes.
it really was like a dream come true. It really was. And as I say, it my life all of a sudden lit up because one of the big changes that I noticed was that, what I said before about whenever I walked into a staff room back home, people
Oh
were
yeah.
talking about retirement. Now in these international schools, whenever you walk into the staff room, the talk is people are talking about what they're doing. Like, okay, where are you going to go during October break? Who's got a good tour company for trekking in Nepal? Who's got a good restaurant in Phnom Penh or in Siem Reap? Who's seen the temples in, I don't know, in Angkor Wat or in Cambodia? So people are talking about what they're doing, and the whole notion of retire, I've never that has never sat well with me
Right.
because the word retire, it's one step away from the grave. And I'm
Mhm.
not ready for that. I do not want to be a person who's sitting in the chair watching Netflix. Like, no.
Talk
And
about
so
it.
no, that's not me at all. And so I decided that in my 70s, now that I'm heading towards there, and RTT is now going to become my second brilliant career, I decided that instead of retirement, I'm going to be involved in re-inspirement.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. And because, um, speaking of thinking of teachers again, what I did, leaving everything and moving halfway around the world, that's not doable for everybody. I
It's not.
get that. It really isn't. And, you know, and it may not necessarily be necessary either. Maybe maybe some teachers, maybe they just need to have a change in grade level, or maybe they just need to change schools, or maybe they just need to change school district, or if possible, move cities, or move across the state or the province, or maybe across the country. I mean, it doesn't have to be as drastic as moving halfway around the world. I mean, it can be if you want it to be.
Right.
Um, and some people cannot move because of family obligations, aging parents. They're the only breadwinner in the family. Perhaps they're a single parent, or the other conundrum is when you get so far into teaching, then you're locked in sometimes because of the pension.
Mm.
And so where can you afford to take a drop in salary and take out your pension early, all of those things. So so that can add to the confusion, and that can add to the stress and to the upset because people feel as though they're stuck, when in actual fact you might just need to make a tweak to your situation.
You're right.
And granted, for some people, they need to move out of the profession and find another profession, for
Yeah,
sure.
because you could teach in many different ways. I know that. Um,
Yes.
I'll tell you what. Like, first of all, I commend you for stepping up for your assignment, but and taking a big leap of faith. That takes a lot of faith and courage to do what you do, and I commend you for that. Um, But yes, as far as teaching, you could teach in many different capacity with for children.
Sure,
You
sure.
could teach all
And
around.
sure,
Mm-hmm.
sure. I think, okay, teaching is my profession, but it's also my vocation. And so while I'm now looking at moving out of classroom teaching, I'm
Mm-hmm.
now going to be teaching adults and so I'm going to be teaching in a different capacity. And so, for some people there are some teachers who think, well, they can't get out of the teaching profession because they don't have skills that, say, somebody in the corporate world would want, or it doesn't necessarily need to be corporate, but that somebody else would want. But so many times, what is needed is a shift in perception.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we have so many skills because of all of the hats we have to wear in the classroom.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a question of taking your skills, noting your skills and your strengths, and either doing it yourself or finding somebody who can help you rewrite those skills and strengths in a language that somebody in another profession would understand. You can't speak teacher speak to, say, somebody, maybe you want to go into engineering. Do you know what I mean? You have to use the right language
You do.
if you want to change professions. And so some people feel stymied and stuck because they think they're only just a teacher, but there are so many skills that we can leverage. It's finding out how to word them in such a way that other people understand what it is our skills are. If you talk about your skills in terms of everything you do in the classroom, nobody except a teacher is going to appreciate
I
that.
understand that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
Absolutely.
when you talk about how one of the really let's say you're teaching, I don't know, early years, like kid in grade 1 or whatever. When you talk about one of the wins being the kids could find their way to the bathroom and back by themselves without getting lost, that's a huge win. you know but you
Absolutely.
can't very well put that on your resume. Nobody understands that, and nobody except a teacher would understand being or would appreciate, number one, having a computer that works, and also being able to have a restroom break during the day.
Child, that.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, I was reminded of that when I read that book, Pencils Down, that was written by Michael Byer. It's just newly published. It's a great book. And he said, yes, if you give he said, if only other employers would understand, you've got a teacher, if you've given them a computer that works and they know that they can have a restroom break, they're happy. They'll work for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is so
So,
true. What advice would you give to teachers who are experiencing burnout down? Like, what techniques can they actually use? Like, say they do get a 10-minute bathroom break. What can they what can they do? What advice can you give them to kind of like relieve some of that tiredness or that
sure,
frustration?
sure.
Um,
I have to start off with, on my website, I have a couple of free audios that people can download to help get them started. On my Facebook page, I have something that's called SOS for Teachers: 10 quick strategies to help combat stress. I think that's the title. But there are suggestions for meditation, guided visualization, breathing techniques, self hypnosis for sleep. So they're quick stress release techniques and activities. And what people can also do is, if any of this is resonating with any of your listeners, it's very easy to go onto my website and just make an appointment. We can have a quick dialogue, a quick 20-minute discovery call, so that we can discuss what the issue is. Or you can shoot me an email. And I would love to hear people's stories, and I would love to find out how I can help them. So that's a start. Working with me one on one, we can do some marvelous work. And I would like to explain also how RTT, or rapid transformational therapy, works. So basically, RTT has special tools and techniques that we use when the client is in hypnosis. We use those tools and techniques to access the subconscious to find out what is the root cause of the limiting belief that is holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't change anything if you don't understand it. But understanding in hypnosis is so powerful, because when you find out what the root cause is and where you got it from and how it's holding you back, then we can flip that belief, and then change can happen very quickly. And so once you can get rid of that limiting belief, then then it's the freedom program, as I call it. Then you can start living the life that you imagine, and the life that you envision. But unless you know what's holding you back, you can't understand why you're stuck, and why this isn't working and that isn't working, and you seem to get the same old all the time. But once you know, then you can do something about it. And I think that what I'm finding is that um, there are so many um, limiting beliefs that when I visualize them, it's rather like a spider's web. They're so all interconnected, right?
Right.
That if you can get rid of one limiting belief, you may be able to collapse a few others that are connected to that. I mean,
Mm.
maybe not. It depends on the person and the issue. But um, gosh, if you think of limiting beliefs as anchors, and anchors float below the surface, and you don't see the anchors that are holding, or the anchor that's holding that boat there. And so limiting beliefs are like that. We most of the time, we aren't aware of the limiting beliefs that are guiding our behavior. We just don't understand why we're stuck. And
Mm.
so once we can find out what that limiting belief is, and we can cut the connection between the limiting belief and you, as it were, then we can start flying again. Then we can start remembering our superpowers.
Absolutely.
But if you're dragged down by these various limiting beliefs, you may have forgotten that, you got a PhD degree. And remember that time you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and remember that, you bought your first house and you had your first baby. We tend to forget all of those things when we are down in the depths of despair, do you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think it's about remembering our greatness again.
Absolutely. I did a speech on, I did a lot of talk on imposter syndrome, and it's
Yes,
about limiting belief and knowing, remembering who you are and your superpowers. Can you talk
yes,
to us a little bit about that too? About
yes.
imposter syndrome?
Well, as you know, imposter syndrome is that feeling of anxiety that you have inside, despite all of the success that you've achieved. And
Right.
so quite often, not quite often, but I think many of us have experienced imposter syndrome in our life at various
Right.
times. It's like when you get a promotion, for example, and you start in this new job that you've been wanting, and you get into the new job, and then you start feeling all of this self-doubt.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this job. I don't know why I ever thought I could do this job. Why did they hire me? I think they made a mistake. They're going to find out they made a mistake. I'm going to make a mess of this whole thing. I should have stayed right where I was. But as a friend of mine said to me, she said, Carolyn, I don't think we can really call it imposter syndrome. I think it should be called beginner's syndrome. And I thought, isn't that great? You start this new job, You've never done it before. You've never had to do it before. You're just acquiring the skills and the knowledge and the training. Why would you expect that you could do it perfectly the first time round? You're beginning in this new job. So you have beginner syndrome. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily have imposter syndrome. So I think that, so that's what I want to say about imposter syndrome, because I know I felt it. It's like at various times. So I have this job, and it's like, so you start looking over your shoulder. Who's going to come by and see the work that I'm doing? Because I know they're going to find a mistake with it. And then I'm going to be out on the street again. Do you know, it's that kind of thing. It's remembering you got to where you are because of your skills and experience, and somebody saw that. And so, it's about feelings of not enoughness. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not experienced enough. I don't have enough training. Maybe it's, I'm not tall enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not whatever. Right. And
Right.
so we end up feeling like a fraud, when in
Mhm.
actual fact, we have the skills and the experiences. We've forgotten our greatness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes to anything like that we want to, like you said, start in the beginning. Like the seed that's placed inside of us, the assignment that's placed inside of us, of course, is so much bigger than we can imagine. So it
Sure.
scares us. It scares us a
Yes.
lot. So when
Yes.
we have to step out on faith and move forward and start nurturing that's inside of us, it grows. If we just actually just continue to nurture it, continue to
Sure.
build it,
Sure.
um, we watch it grow. We don't have to do anything because it's already in us. I mean,
That's right.
you could still learn. Okay, you could pick up tools. It's not going to say that because there's a part in imposter syndrome. I forgot what in the labels. I talk about it so many times, but
Yes.
there's a piece. It's about knowing everything that you have to know everything. All that work, the expert.
Yes.
You feel like you need to know everything before you get started. Just get
Exactly.
started.
Yeah,
Just
that's
get started
exactly
with what
right.
you have.
That's right.
So, yes,
And and that's all. And feeling that we have to know everything when we get started, that's the stress that we put on ourselves. There's nobody that said you have to know everything right now. That's why we have a 3-month training period, so that you can learn what you need.
right.
And this makes me think, um, many years ago, when I was writing my thesis, um, I'd collected all the research and done everything, and now it was time to sit down and write. And I had the research. I mean, my room was filled with all of these articles, and it was so overwhelming. I didn't know where to start. I thought,
That
what am
part.
I going to, how can I do this? I,
Yeah.
and so I said to my thesis advisor, I don't know how to do this. How can I do this? And he said, just start, write a sentence. And he said, there's nobody that says that sentence has to be the first sentence. It could be the last sentence, and you might even throw it out, but you have to get a sentence on
Just
the paper. You have to
get something
start.
started. Just put something on the paper.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Put something on paper, get started.
Get
And,
started.
and I think that, what you were saying just a few minutes earlier reminded me that, when we have something that we're facing that is new, and, we're nervous about it. It's like, how people have a fear of public speaking. Oh, good grief.
They
And
rather
so
die. It's a real fear. And I'm like, it
it's,
is.
it's,
Because I could
it's
just run my mouth all day.
it's a huge fear. But
Oh my
when people are facing these new experiences, um, instead, the interesting thing about the brain is, um, that, um, if you keep telling yourself you're nervous about, say, going on stage, or nervous in terms of this new interview, that so that you can get out of teaching, for example. Well, if you keep telling yourself that you're nervous, your brain is going, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying.
I'm
You
being
want to feel nervous, I will make you feel nervous, because you'll get the sweaty palms and all this other stuff. But your brain does not know the difference between nervous and excitement. It's only the meaning that we attach to the word.
Right.
So if you say, like before you go on stage, for example, or before you go into this job interview, if you say, I'm excited, well,
Right.
you immediately have a physiological shift in
Right.
that. And so, you know, I don't know. This relates to imposter syndrome somehow, but but
Okay.
it's I know somehow, I don't know. But I think it's that, yes, I'm starting this new project. I'm excited about this new project. I'm excited. This is going to be great. So if we do that, then your brain goes, okay, this is going to be great. You want excitement? I'll give you excitement.
Great. The adrenaline. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
So,
I mean, it's always fearful to step out on stage or do public speaking, but I always think of it as, like you said, you got to twist it around and say, you know what? There's somebody out there that needs to hear what I have to say. And
yes,
I'm excited
yes,
to deliver what it is that I have that they need so that they could go out and do what they were called to do. So
yes,
that's how it gets.
absolutely.
I think
Yep.
that's why I just love speaking.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm always looking for a way. Like I'm doing customer service now, but
Yes.
for me, it's almost like I'm in a therapy session, or I'm always motivating people. Then when I get off the phone with my customers, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I can see you doing that. Definitely can see you doing that."
Yes.
So I'm like, it's already in me. So yes, you definitely have to reframe your words and
Yes.
speak that way, speak a
Yeah.
different way.
That's right. And the thing is, the subconscious, the brain is always listening to what you're saying. And
Yes,
so we have to be so cognizant of the words that we're saying to ourselves all the
absolutely.
time.
Because you're
And
speaking it into an existence.
exactly. That's exactly right. And your brain responds to words and pictures. So if you're constantly seeing yourself up on stage, you're going to trip when you go up on stage, you're going to blah, blah, blah. Well, then that's exactly what's going to happen, because your brain is going, well, you want it. This is what you wanted. This is what you've been telling me.
Right. I don't know
You
why
know,
you want that, but okay, you want
yeah,
it.
I know that's exactly right.
That's what I'm going to
And
give you.
yeah, exactly. I'm giving you exactly what you've asked for.
It
That's
listens
the
to you.
thing.
It's listening to you. You're the one that's you're. I don't want to say that you're in control, but you are the one. We are made in His image. He called things into the world to be it. And so if we are made in His image and we are His children, we are doing the same thing that He's like. We're just calling stuff into existence. We, like you said, oh yes, I'm gonna trip up on stage, or
Sure.
I'm gonna ramble on through this speech, or I'm gonna just forget everything I'm supposed to say. Well, yeah, okay, now you done
That's what
created the
happens.
scenario, so
That's right. Yeah.
you
And
gotta switch.
that's right. And so I was just working on a newsletter that's going to be available soon. And in the newsletter, I was talking about one of the rules of the mind that
Yeah,
Marissa Peer created. Now, Marissa Peer was the creator of RTT therapy. And one of the rules of the mind is whatever you visualize, or whatever the words and pictures that you say and see,
okay.
you tend to realize that. And so in a classroom, for example, one of the things I wrote in the newsletter is that there always seems to be that one kid, the one kid that you just know, whatever activity you want to get going, that one kid is just not going to be able to do it without a huge bunch of drama. And so we tend to just expect this one kid to always act this way. It doesn't matter what it is that we do. But and I've been guilty of this. How many times has that one kid actually done the right thing and we haven't noticed, because that's not what we've been focused on? We've been focusing on all the other things that one kid was always doing incorrectly. So it's what we focus on tends to be realized, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that because it brought me back to when I was working at one of the preschools, a daycare, as the lead teacher, and I was going to take over a classroom. And this one, or like these many different teachers, okay?
Yeah,
Even the even the administrators, like, oh, he's this, he's that, he knocks over tables. Yes, I hear him knocking over tables. Like there was something, verbally. I believe that he was autistic, but he was like only two, so
sure,
you can't really say. But he was not, or just having a temper tantrum. He may not have been autistic. He could have been just having a 2-year-old temper tantrum, just knocking
sure,
stuff over.
sure, sure.
And um, so they was constantly telling me this and telling me this. So when I took over the class, I was expecting him to be this little terror, 2 years old.
Yes,
That little boy clung to me. He loved his little
yes,
blankie or his little juice cup. And I'd be like, okay, well, it's not nap time yet, so let's put it right here for a little while. I'll put it right here next to you, fold it up. So
sure,
I think it's all about your connection or how you
sure,
teach.
sure,
Like you said,
sure,
you have to be in a certain group in a certain
sure,
age bracket. If you can teach that, if you can't, then okay, move up some or
sure,
do
sure.
something else.
That's right.
But I went into the classroom believing that he was going to be this little terror. He was
Right,
absolutely a
right,
sweet,
right.
sweet.
And, there are lots of examples I mean, that's not an isolated example. It happens all over the place, right? So I think that one of the ways that people can help lessen their stress is that if we tend to look for those small little wins that we have in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and when we can start to see those small little wins accumulate, then we can start feeling gratitude. I think that, the day wasn't a complete loss. The week wasn't a complete loss. Now, obviously, I mean, there are some situations where people are in such dire need that it's they need to have assistance over and above these like stress relieving techniques, obviously, right?
Right,
Professional help, right?
right.
But as a start, um, we can bring ourselves back to some of these basic things that we've forgotten, like maybe journaling, maybe meditating. That can help relieve the stress. And the other thing is, when we are in experiencing such stress, one of the things that tends to go is our self-care. We totally forget, or we're so exhausted we can't think of making a nutritious meal or going for a walk. I mean, it's just sometimes trying to decide what to make for day, it's just too overwhelming. Can't do it because it's been one of those days. So it's also remembering self-care that needs to happen as well.
Absolutely.
So you
Very,
know yeah, so anyhow, I mean, there are some quick tips that I mentioned in the SOS teachers guide on my Facebook page that
okay.
we put in there. And again, as I say, I would invite anybody who would like to connect and get more information to, email me or make a quick appointment and we can talk.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I was just going to ask you as we get ready to close out, because you gave
Yes,
so many valuable advice. I'm also going to put it in the description of how to contact you. But can you please just share some more ways of
sure,
how we can contact you? Do you
sure,
have any social
sure.
media outlets?
Yes. I have a website. It's Carolyn Boras, CarolynBorasHypnotherapy.com. My Facebook is Carolyn Boras Hypnotherapy. And my email is Carolyn@CarolynBorasHypnotherapy.com.
That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you for spending time with me today. You were amazing. I love speaking to my co-host. Yes,
Thank
truly
you.
rock. And you were just amazing. Thank you for the great nuggets and the information. It's very informative, and reaching out to you. I know there's a lot of educators that will definitely benefit from what you have
Thank
to
you.
offer.
Yeah. And I would also like to say that if there are listeners who are not educators, well, how many of us know an educator who might need help, are
Absolutely.
related to an educator, or might have an educator as a spouse who might need help, right?
Yes.
But then also, I want to say that I recognize that not everybody who's listening to this is an educator. And so while my focus is on educators because they're my tribe, as it were, they're my people,
Right.
teachers have not cornered the market on stress and burnout, though, right? I mean, you can experience stress and burnout if you're a bus driver or a paralegal or an accountant
Mom.
or a dentist or a mom or a stay-at-home or a dad. And so the issues of like imposter syndrome, self-esteem, confidence, motivation, procrastination, and all of that kind of thing isn't just the sole isn't the teachers don't just own that area. Do you know
College
anybody?
students, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so anybody who would like help dealing with any of those issues, I mean, please again, feel free to jump on the website and book a call because I'm very happy to hear what people are experiencing. And I hope to be able to throw a big boulder into this lake and just
Absolutely.
have it ripple out, as wide
I'm
as it could.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, great, great. Well, this is helping being able to talk to you. It's great. Thank you so much.
Of course, 'cause I'm going to share it all over mine. So I'm going to send it to you to make sure that you can share it all over yours.
Great,
And I
great.
want to say thank you again for joining me today.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Thank you
thank
so much.
everybody listening. Oh, no problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. Hope to have you back soon.
Oh, I'd love to talk to you again, and I'll let you know how things are going.
Absolutely. I want to hear about it.
Sure.
Absolutely. Reach
All
out to
righty.
me. Okay.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Bye
Give me
bye.
one moment.